Hey everyone, I just wanted to quickly interrupt this video before it's even begun by announcing the winner of the Christmas giveaway that we did in the previous video. So the winner is, drumroll, Jan Nowak. And you can check that out on the screen. I randomly selected it from the almost 300 comments that you guys left. Jan, be sure to give me an email. You can find my email on the contact page on pianotv.net, or you can contact me via the back end of YouTube as well. Please get a hold of me in the next week or so, otherwise I will choose another giveaway winner. Anyway, thank you for participating, all of you. I hope you had a great Christmas, and let's get on to this video. Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Piano TV. So now that it's the new year, and it's 2018 for those of you watching maybe in the future, I just tend to start thinking more about resolutions and challenges and things like that, along with pretty much everyone else in the world. So one thing that I thought would be really fun to do this year is the 40 pieces a year challenge. And that's something that I want to talk about in depth in this video, and maybe you will be inclined to join. So let's get started. The whole hubbub of learning 40 pieces a year didn't originally begin with Allysia Milne. Really hope I'm saying her last name right. But she is the one who popularized the idea on the internet. So what happened with Allysia is she was feeling underwhelmed with her students' progress because they tended to only be learning like 6 to 10 pieces a year, and they were terrible sight readers and stuff like that. So she decided to look into the research a little bit. She went to some conferences and had the idea to start teaching 40 pieces a year instead of like a more limited repertoire. She had huge success with that. You can read more about her story. You can just Google her and you'll find the story, but I'll link it over on my blog as well. So why the number 40 in the first place? The reason that 40 pieces in a year was taken to be like the number for the challenge is because there are 40 years in a standard, 40 years. There are 40 weeks in a standard school year because of like holidays and the summer break and stuff like that. So I really like the number 40 personally because 52 pieces in a year just feels so much more strict. It doesn't really give you any leeway for life to happen and stuff like that, but 40 pieces a year allows for, you know, life to have moments and stuff like that, and it's just a little bit of a less overwhelming number. I had a really similar experience to Allysia in the early days at my piano studio because I took a very similar approach where we didn't learn very many pieces, but the pieces we did learn, we learned them to like a super crazy, intense perfectionist level. And I was getting frustrated because of my students' lack of progress. Like I felt that they should be moving faster, doing better, learning more. And I about 5 years ago, I started, probably longer than that, I started playing around with getting my students to learn more music. And this is long before I'd ever heard of the 40 pieces a year challenge or anything like that. But I noticed that it just my students dramatically improved as soon as we started increasing the volume of music. So in my studio, even if a student only learns a piece to like 70 to 80% competency, we'll still scrap it and move on. It's kind of like a system where we want to avoid perfectionism. Now that being said, we do occasionally pick out pieces that they really like to polish, so to get closer to like a 90 or 100% level. Those are usually recital and festival pieces and stuff like that. But for the most part, we learn it to where they can play it fairly well, maybe not perfectly, but quite well, and then move on. One big benefit of this rapid fire approach is it removes some of the resistance and some of the fear of learning new music. If you're only learning a few pieces a year, you're going to be naturally more hesitant to take on a new piece because it's going to seem like such a huge hurdle. But if you're, always kind of cycling in new music, it's just not going to be, it's going to be the normal. It's not going to be something to be afraid of. It might even be something to relish. So why do a 40-piece challenge for the year 2018, or whatever year you happen to be watching this video in? Well, I've already discussed several reasons already, including improving your sight reading skills. Your sight reading just has to get better if you're reading more music. It's inevitable. You can release your mental blocks to learning new music, and your resistance to the new and unknown will start dissolving once you start tackling more pieces. You can expose yourself to more piano music. Like there's more than a lifetime's worth of piano repertoire out there. And I personally like to devour as much of it as I can because, life is short and life is too short to only learn a handful of pieces every year. You can improve your musicianship, whether or not that means you're doing a deep dive into Bach's music or you're expanding more broadly into a variety of composers, you can get rid of the tendency towards perfectionism. When you learn 40 pieces a year, you really don't have time to be a perfectionist. Perfectionism is a problem, and it usually stems from fear. So learning more music keeps us fresh and playful and helps us avoid that train of thought that I'll move on when it's perfect. And of course, it can be really motivating to set real and tangible piano goals. If you just learn aimlessly, your progress might be a little slower, but if you have like a real goal, and that goal in this case being 40 pieces per year, you'll almost definitely have to push yourself harder than you would have otherwise. Before you start this challenge, because you're going to join me, right? There's a few, not rules, but there's a few things that I want to bring up just to make sure we're kind of all on the same page. So the idea with learning 40 pieces is not to learn 40 pieces that like stretch you to the limits of what's difficult in piano repertoire. So what I mean is if you are a grade 6 level musician and that's kind of like your peak where you're at, you don't want to learn 40 grade 6 level pieces. You want to learn some easier ones in there too. Otherwise, it's just going to take way too long. So for me, I'm pretty comfortable at around a grade 10 level, and I'm not going to learn 40 grade 10 level pieces because they just take too long. So I'll probably spend some time anywhere, like learning pieces anywhere between grade 6 to 9 as kind of the bulk of where I spend my efforts, with a few more difficult pieces thrown in there. So an ideal practice schedule for me might see me playing like a few easier pieces and then one longer term challenge going on at the same time. If you learn 40 pieces in a year, you're probably not going to want to keep all 40 of those pieces in your regular repertoire rotation. But that being said, it would be a huge waste to spend all that time learning all that music just to abandon and discard it all. So that's why I like to give my students an additional challenge. I don't do this every year, but I should do this more often. Is to select some really awesome pieces. So pieces that they really like, maybe they're more challenging, maybe they put more work into them, and put them on a repertoire list. So if you are learning 40 pieces in a year, maybe like here's an arbitrary number, but maybe you want to select 10, approximately a quarter. Could be more, could be less. 10 of your favorites that you really like, that you want to maintain and be able to play at the drop of a hat wherever you are. So these are pieces that you would have spent more time on, you've polished them, so they're not the 70 to 80% pieces. These are the ones that you've maybe even performed. These are like the 90 to 100%, or at least the pieces that you aspire to get to 90 or 100%. And these are pieces that are best if they're memorized, or if you can at least strive towards memorizing them, because it's awesome to be able to play these pieces wherever you are, to just have like even just a selection of 10 pieces that you've learned over the year that you can just sit down on any old piano and start playing. A final but really important note, and that is on accountability. It's one thing to do this 40-day challenge all on your own, but it's another thing entirely to participate with a group of people. And that's why the Piano World forums are so awesome. Every year they start a thread called the 40 Pieces a Year Club, and what you see on the screen is 2017's club, if you just kind of want to check it out and see how people do things. This year's club, you can go hop over on the blog and you can find a link to it, or you can just, Google 40 Pieces a Year Club Piano World and you'll be able to find the link. So how this works is, in this thread, you can post recordings of your pieces, you can track your progress, you can have general discussions with other participants about the music and stuff. You can learn music in whatever genre you want. Like, it's not a strictly classical music challenge if you're into jazz or ragtime or anything like that. And like we've discussed, this challenge isn't about learning 40 really difficult pieces or perfecting all 40 even. And they state that explicitly at the start of each year. So again, we're not reaching for perfection here. We're just reaching for breadth. One really cool thing that this forum does is keep you accountable. They keep a name of everyone who is participating. So all you got to do is like leave a post in the forum to say, hey, I'm gonna do this challenge, and then they keep a running tally of how many pieces that each person has learned so far. So that is also a good incentive to make a post every time you completed a new piece, just so you can keep up this running tally. So that's all for today's video. I really hope that you'll hop over to Piano World and join me for this challenge. I don't know how realistic this challenge is going to be for me this year, but I'm going to do it anyway, just because I'm going to be having a baby this month or next. So that kind of plays, I think that's going to tamper with my time and availability a little bit, but I am still going to strive for 40. And even if I don't hit 40, I still want to play along and still have a goal to reach for. So I'd love if you could join me. Anyway, subscribe if you haven't already. You can give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And hopefully I will see you over on Piano World. Catch you in the next video. 4, 0. I'm not very good at this.